almost double the average premium size when you're talking about an IUL. And the persistency is close to 20% higher. So you look at an IUL, 90% persistency is the average persistency across the carriers. Excited to walk through setting the table for IULs. So many different things that we have talked about in the last couple of weeks about how this the IUL side of business is really where so many of us are starting to, hang our hat for a handful of different reasons. And I'll just dig through a couple of them. We won't spend too much time on it, but almost double the average premium size when you're talking about an IUL. And the persistency is close to 20% higher. So you look at an IUL, 90% persistency is the average persistency across the carriers, whereas with mortgage protection and final expense, it's closer to 70%. Mortgage and final expense, that's our bread and butter. That's where we got this whole thing started. It's still a great place for you to start, a great place to learn case design for life insurance, because that's what we do. We are life insurance salespeople. I just got done doing, a small mortgage protection, equity protection policy for a 77-year-old, and it's going to pay me almost $3,000. So at the end of the day, it's still our bread and butter. It's what we do, but the IUL is just such a fun conversation. It's such an awesome skill to be able to go out there and learn. And so many of you, as you're just getting started, you're like, well, where do I really start? What are these resources? What's available to me? And how do I do this in as simple of a way as possible? So a lot of people came out to Greenville a couple of weeks ago. We had our lock-in. It was fantastic. And we sat down and we really broke down how to set the table, which is where we're going to spend the majority of our time here today. So much of our insurance business has been based upon a really quick sale, a one-call close or a one-sit close, where I sit down with somebody and it's like, here's what we're going to do today. We're going to fill out an application today. We're going to submit a request to see if you can qualify. And on the IUL side, we're finding that it's not as quick of a sale. It's not typically a one-sit close unless it's like under $300. If it's above $300, a lot of the times you got a lot more think about it. We're going from a one-sit close to sometimes it's 2 appointments or even 3 appointments. And I've seen sometimes 4 appointments. Now that can get a little lengthy, and there's ways to obviously, tailor that down here. But definitely when you're getting into some of these bigger cases, a minimum of 2 appointments. So we're going to walk through how to set the table, because that's what that first phone call is all about. Setting the table, figuring out what it is that they're looking for, and setting up a second appointment where you can actually go through that illustration. So I'm going to give a couple of different perspectives. We've taught, kind of biasly from, my perspective, Josh's perspective, Sean's perspective, and I will definitely go through that tonight as well on how most of us are setting the table. But I want to also just give you guys a few alternative resources, because you might say, you know what, I don't talk like Josh. I need a dumbed down version, or I don't talk like Jamie. I don't talk like Sean. I need something else, another script, something that I can go through. So a couple of different things that have come out recently. There's something called the IUL handbook, which I will go ahead and share my screen on real quick, and we'll make sure that everybody gets access to this. But this one came out directly from Family First Life, the Simple Retirement Solution Department. And I'll make sure, like I said, everyone gets access to the IUL handbook. It really starts you out, get prepared for success, complete the SRS training camp, and you can't get appointed with some of the different IUL carriers without it. So you have to finish the IUL training camp and send that off to them before they will approve, F&G and NLG and all the other ones. Getting your CRM set up, our CRM of choice is Lead Champ Pro. Requesting your F&G and NLG carriers, and there's a couple of other ones, Columbus Life, North American, Lafayette, depending on what you're doing. And then you've got the SRS resources, fflagenthub.com. You can click on SRS. We've got a client inventory sheet, handful of different ones that are out there. And then we've got all the different carrier underwriting guides that are available here in that hub underneath Simple Retirement Solutions. Now, this is a IUL discovery call script that I believe this is Zach Tardowski's and how he goes through it. And this is different than a lot of the stuff that we teach. So I'm just going to quickly brush through it, and I'll go through one more that they put together, and then I'll go through kind of our preferred one. But quick discovery call, hey, Bob, this is Jamie. I'm calling about the IULs, Index Universal Life. You filled out the request online. If they seem unclear about what they're asking, obviously just continue to explain. This is one where you can be your own bank, create tax-free retirement, build generational wealth. If they seem like they're getting it, hey, thanks for submitting your information. Be very assumptive when you're moving forward. I'm going to ask you a couple quick questions to make sure this is something that you might qualify for, and we'll go from there. Sound good? They keep going, great. If they stop because they're busy, set a new appointment. Hey, our mornings or evenings typically better for you. So, hey, let's bring you up to speed. What are you looking for to get out of the IUL? Get the answers, take notes. If they're confused as to what the IUL does, give them some real basic info. So, hey, a lot of people want to leverage cash value for tax-free retirement building, be their own bank, things like that. There's also living benefits and, of course, a death benefit. What's most important to you? Most people will say, I want all of that. It's important to dig a little bit deeper and kind of figure out what they specifically want. Say, okay, I'm going to cover some additional info and see if this would be a good fit. Fair enough. Great. Let's go through the client inventory, and I'm just going to speed through this part, go through the money items, figure out what they bring in, if they rent, if they have any savings, go through the health history to figure out if they can actually qualify, and then schedule a presentation. I'm not going to dig through all of how to lock it down. This group in particular, they like doing Zooms. A lot of us, we use Crankwheel, which is a easy screen sharing service. Either one is good. I think Crankwheel is easier because you don't have to have the client download anything. You set the appointment, and then this is just another version of that same script, but going directly through it. They've got their own financial inventory here that's a little bit more in depth. That's going to be, going into some of these other things. So this is where you can find annuity money and couple of little things, and we'll keep it moving. Some rules of thumb, policies less than $300. We should be looking at simplified issue carriers like Ethos IUL, Americo IUL, and Mu IUL. When running these scenarios, make sure we run a minimum death benefit, maximum cash value. Your manager can explain some of that. If you want to run a Mutual of Omaha, you're going to need WinFlex. And then this is just some great IUL related terminology. So what does indexed mean? The cash value in the account will grow linked to, not indexed in, an index, such as the S&P 500. When the market goes up, your cash value goes up. When the market tanks, the floor, discussed later, we're going to protect your cash value. What does universal mean? Universal means flexible, not locked in stone. If we need to make changes to the contributions, the death benefit in a month or a year, we can. Life, self-explanatory, life insurance and real estate. If you have a mortgage, that's not a loan against your house, but a loan against your income. With life insurance, the death benefit is going to be the collateral. So if someone takes out a loan and they get hit by a bus the next day, the loan will be subtracted from the death benefit. Uninterrupted compound interest. Fancy marketing term. It sounds sexy, but if it wasn't for this, the IUL wouldn't be that great. This is similar to cash out refinance in a house. When you take a loan against your house is still valued and growing off the entire amount. MEC, modified endowment contract. Once your policy becomes a MEC, it cannot be undone. If you create a MEC in normal people talk, you pretty much blew up your tax advantage status of the life insurance contract. That's why we talk about structuring these things properly. Now, even when you take loans out, the gains will be reported as taxable income. In some instances, you'll have a penalty before the age of 60. Some people may want to MEC a policy because they really just like the benefits of the downside protection with the upside potential. When in an illustration, you'll see the MEC premium. That is the most that a client can put in a given year before turning their policy into a MEC. And then they typically can't accidentally MEC it. They would have to basically sign off on a document saying they understand exactly what they're doing. The higher the death benefit, the higher the MEC. This isn't necessarily a good thing unless someone really wants to dump money into the policy the first couple of years. If the MEC is way too high, that means their death benefit will most likely eat up their cash value and not be good for the policy. Last couple things here. Minimum death benefit, maximum cash value. This is how we want to structure a policy for maximum cash growth. Typically, people want insurance. They say, hey, I want $1 million in coverage. What's the cheapest you can get it for me? This is the opposite. This is pretty much saying, hey, our IRS, I want to put in $1,000 a month. What's the littlest amount of insurance that I need for this to be considered an insurance contract? With this strategy, you can use the level death benefit, an increasing death benefit, or an increasing to level, discussed more below. We're not going to dig too deep into these. We'll let you guys dig into that level increasing and increasing to level. Different crediting strategies. You guys hear Sean talk about participation rate. You hear Josh talk about the floor. You hear people talk about the cap, the accumulated value, the surrender value, the net death benefit, and then loans versus withdrawals. This is just a great document, which we'll send out in the Discord if you want to have some more benefits. And then carrier information. We have most of this inside of LeadChamp, but if you guys don't have it, just all of the carrier phone numbers and emails and things like that for customer support. So we'll go ahead and send all of that out for you guys. One other document that was sent to me was from another Hall of Fame producer, integrity partner, Kelvin Wright. He's been crushing it on the IUL side. We'll go through his real quick. It's a very short one pager, and then we will dig for a little bit longer into the one that we typically use. But hey, Bob, my name's Kelvin. I'm giving you a call about the IUL Index Universal Life request you made. Were you more interested in the tax-free cash value, tax-free retirement, or protection? Okay, my job's to help you design this for you, go through it, explain how it works, and see if it's something you can even get approved for. You can't just buy it off the shelf like a loaf of bread. Anyways, based on your goal, the way it's supposed to be structured is minimum death benefit, maximum cash value, which just means the goal is to have the least amount of insurance required by the IRS to get all the tax benefits of the program. The programs we have, what's called a 0% floor, which means you can't go backwards. Also, it follows the index, so you earn somewhere between 5 and 15%. Everything you put in and gain is tax-free. Does that make sense? And you guys can see this is a very simplified version. The last one was a little bit more complex. And what the insurance company is looking at is insurability, which is why I was saying not everyone can get it. With that being said, the carrier looks at the last 10 years of health, criminal history, and driving record, what medications have you been prescribed, even if you haven't taken them, felonies, probation, DUI. Okay, I have to include anything in your record or the auto decline for not disclosing it. So I just want to make sure I have everything. Everything's built around your budget, and most people put somewhere between 5 and 10% of their monthly income into the policy. What would make sense for you per month? I don't know about you, but I'm more of a visual person. So what I'm going to do is send you a quick Zoom link to show you and go over the illustration, and we will use that illustration to apply to the carrier, since they have to figure it out if it's something they'll let you participate in. Send the Zoom link, call your upline if needed. So very, very simple. At the end of the day, a lot of the principles are going to be the exact same. Figuring out what specifically they're looking for, giving them a basic overview of what an IUL is, asking some questions and figuring out what is their number before we go ahead and move on to the next appointment. So you see a lot of, hey, call your upline, call your manager if you don't know what to do. That is absolutely what you should be doing. Probably for my first 10 or 15 appointments, I was calling somebody else, whether they were my manager or someone else on the team, even calling my downline who is selling more than I am on IULs to learn how to do this. That's what is necessary. And don't be prideful. If it comes down to splitting a policy with someone for you to learn, that is the cost of doing business for you to learn how to do this, so you never have to split with someone again. So now we're going to spend the rest of our time digging through the document that we went through at our lock-in, which is kind of our preferred way of going through everything. And you guys can figure out what works best for you. That's why I want to make sure that we offer multiple perspectives. The SRS department, they obviously know what they're doing. They're working with the top IUL people. This is directly from Josh Lockhart, who's obviously been kind of pioneering IULs for our team. So this is really simple. This is going to take us from the initial phone call to setting the next appointment. We're not going to dig too deep into the illustration side and structuring the policies and all of that stuff. We just want to get people comfortable with that first phone call. We want to get people comfortable with doing the fact finding and figuring out what the most important thing is. The worst thing is when I get a phone call from somebody and they say, hey, I've got someone who wants an IUL, and And then I start asking them questions about what does that client want? What are their needs? And they're like, oh, I have no idea. This is the purpose of going through this, is so that you can gather some information. Because if you're like, hey, we'll get back on the phone to go through something, but you haven't been able to do your homework, how can you do your homework? How can you make an illustration if we don't know all of their basic information, like their goals, what they're looking for, and what their budget is for this policy? So just like with any other script that we have, we've got who you are and why you're calling. Hey, Bob, this is Jamie. I'm just getting back with you. You filled out that form online about the indexed universal life, the one that talked about, insert their goal, because a lot of them on these leads are putting in specifically what they're looking for. The one where you said you wanted to save for retirement, the one where you said that you wanted to make more money, the one where you said you wanted to be your own bank, the one where you said you wanted to, protect your family in the long run. Insert that. Yep. Okay, perfect. And I'm just confirming some info here. I've got your date of birth, 8/15/83. Is that correct? Okay, great. Email this. Okay. I just wanted to confirm kind of what it is that you're specifically looking for. A lot of the times, I'll ask them, hey, is this your first time really looking at IULs? Had you already been doing research? And there's a lot of people who say, hey, I've been kind of down the Instagram or the TikTok rabbit hole learning about this stuff. So I've kind of got a basic idea. Or no, this is my first time and I'm trying to get some more info. And I'll say, okay, great. I'm just going to go through with you the 5 basic points of an IUL and the 3 most common setups. And then we'll let you guys ask any questions that you have. So, hey, Bob, 5 basic points of an IUL. The first 2 are insurance-based, because IUL stands for Indexed Universal Life Insurance. So the first 2 are death benefit and living benefit. Benefits that happen if you die and benefits that happen if you're alive. Those are living benefits. So death benefits, pretty self-explanatory. If you've ever had life insurance, know what life insurance is. There's going to be a lump sum available for a beneficiary of your choice based on how much we're going to contribute per month. That's going to be available upon your death to your beneficiary. Number 2, you got living benefits, which basically says if you become critically, terminally, or chronically ill, they're going to pay out that death benefit to you while you're alive, because living benefit means that this is something that happened to you. You're still alive, but there was still a critical thing that happened, terminal, etc. So you can participate in those death benefits, accelerating those to you while you're still alive. That's the insurance side. Does that make sense? Most people say, yep, that makes sense. Okay, now on to the cash accumulation side. This is where you can kind of get into the weeds. You don't need to spend too much time here. We're really just trying to give them a simple overview. So a lot of the times I'll say, hey, and inside of this policy, you can build up something called a cash value savings account or a life insurance retirement plan. The idea is you're going to contribute a percentage monthly. You're going to contribute a dollar amount monthly into this policy, and a percentage of that is going to go towards the death benefit and the living benefit, which we already talked about. And the other percentage is going to go into the cash value savings account. And that money has the opportunity to accumulate like any other retirement plan, like a 401k, like an IRA. The biggest difference is this is put within what's called a fixed index, just simply explaining to them the idea that we can make money, but we can't lose money. Hey, 401ks, if you had 100 grand in 2008, what happened? They lost 40%. So now they were down at about 62,000 after 2008. If that person had an IUL with a fixed index in 2008, they would have got to keep what they have. Really explaining to someone, hey, if you could imagine a chart where you see up and down, up and down, up and down, that's most retirement plans. Most retirement plans are up and down, but ultimately it's going up. But it is going up and down. If you think of an IUL, it's like a stair step. It goes up and then flat, up and then flat. On the years where people lose, the guarantee that we have is 0. So there's absolutely no guarantee that you're going to make money with an IUL, but there is a guarantee that you won't lose money and that you will have access to these insurance benefits. But most accounts, if we look at the last 20 years, like we saw in the last one, are doing anywhere between 5 and 15%. One of our most popular carriers, Mutual of Omaha, they posted 9.25% in 7 out of the last 10 years. Now, again, I know that's a lot of info there, but showing them, hey, you've had a retirement account, you know what a retirement account is, you know that it's based in the stock market, you're going to put money in, a portion's going to go towards paying for the life insurance, and a portion is going to go towards paying for or accumulating the cash value. And how that grows, we'll talk about shortly with the common setups. But cash accumulation, does that make sense? Yes. Okay, the last two, tax-free growth and tax-free access. Have you ever heard of capital gains tax? Yes. Okay, they're being proposed that this year, they want it to go up from 20% to 40%. We're not going to pay capital gains tax on the growth of the money in this account. And then have you ever heard of someone trying to borrow from their 401k, before they retire, 10% penalty and they're taxed on it? Hey, if you take a loan out of your cash value, it's tax-free. You don't get penalized and you don't have to wait until retirement. Does all that make sense? They're going to say yes or no. This is an opportunity for you to have a short conversation. It's like, okay, great. That all makes sense. I just want to quickly go over the 3 most common setups for these policies. Now, it's very important that the agent that you work with on an IUL explains to you the 3 different setups. None of these setups are better or worse than the other. It's just based on your goals and what you're particularly trying to do. And it's up to you how deep you want to go into this. I like to talk about how we as life insurance agents, we get paid on the amount of life insurance that's sold. So at the end of the day, there's a lot of times when you want your policy structured in a way where the cash is going to grow the fastest possible, and an agent will structure it in the way that's going to pay them the most possible. And that's not necessarily a bad thing unless that's not what you wanted. So it's important to explain this to people, is they kind of feel like you're being truthful and you're letting them in behind the curtain. So, hey, there's 3 different focuses. One's going to be a protection focus, 2, a cash accumulation focus, and 3, a 50-50 blend. The protection focused, if let's say you put $100 a month in, or even we'll do a bigger one, say $1,000 a month. Of that $1,000 a month, the majority of the money, we'll call it $800 of the $1,000 a month, is going to go towards your life insurance. And maybe $200 is going to go towards the cash value. That's a protection focus. That's someone who says, yes, I want the benefits of growing my cash, but I mostly want a really high benefit if I die or become sick or disabled. And I want this policy to last for the rest of my life. That's a protection focus. You want to guarantee that you're covered till 100, 120, all those things. Then you have someone who's the cash accumulation focus, who's the person who says, I actually just want to make sure that my money can grow as fast as possible. And I want the legal minimum amount of life insurance for this to be considered a tax-free product. That's a cash accumulation focus. Flip it over. Now, let's say, $200 or $300 is going towards your life insurance and the rest is going towards the cash value. And then you've got a 50-50 blend, which you look at most of the easy solve products, most of them, about half of what you're putting in is going towards the cost of insurance to start. And the other half is going towards the cash accumulation. So if you kind of like both benefits, if you guys go look at like a Moo IULE is a great example of like a blended product that's designed to last until 120, that if it does all the things that it's supposed to do, it'll continue to accumulate. Obviously, if we structure it in a way where we put more money into cash value, it's going to grow faster, but that's a good blended product that's not going to, go ahead and eat itself unless the economy basically goes backwards every year for the next 20 years. So just explaining that to them and say, hey, does that make sense? Which one of these do you think that you're kind of looking for? And almost everybody that I hear from typically says some sort of a blend, because you've gone over all of the different options. You're going to get the people who say, nope, cash accumulation focus. And that's where immediately your mind needs to shift to minimum death benefit, maximum cash value. If you've got someone who says the protection, dig a little bit deeper into that. What are they trying to protect? Find out if they're trying to replace their income if they die, pay off debts, whatever those things are. That's more of a traditional life insurance conversation. That's going to be way closer to a mortgage protection or a final expense conversation when we get into the protection focus. The cash accumulation focus is where now we're talking about,
You say 48?
Basically figuring out how we're going to save as much money as possible in the long run so that this person has the ability to pull out tax-free income later. Taking a 30-year-old and saying, hey, let's save $1,000 a month until you're 65. Now you're going to have $1.5 million in an account, and you'll be able to take $115,000 a year for the rest of your life until you die. That's cash accumulation focus. So figuring out which one they're leaning towards, figuring out really just determining if they need more protection, if they already have protection. And then our goal here, basic underwriting, and then schedule an appointment and figure out what their number is. And this didn't make it into this document for some reason, but figuring out what their number is probably the most important thing you can do here before you leave to go build an illustration. So, I'll ask them if they have more questions. I'll jump into the basic health info just to make sure, hey, heart attack, stroke, cancer. I had someone earlier I spent 20 minutes on the phone with to find out they had throat cancer 2 years ago. I should have asked a lot earlier about some health things. Thankfully, his wife's healthy, so we're going to pivot over to try and do the IUL on his wife. But in that scenario, I should have made sure that I hit some of those knockout questions a little bit earlier. So heart attack, stroke, cancer, anything major, go through that. And it's like, okay, basic income, how much you make per month, what do you do? Okay, great. Hey, ballpark, hey, this is all just hypothetical here. But if we could figure out a monthly amount that you feel like you could comfortably contribute for the next 5 to 10 years with the intention of increasing it later, what do you think like the minimum amount, on a bad month and, the maximum amount on a good month you feel like you could contribute into a life insurance retirement plan or a cash value savings account, however you want to put it. The goal here is just to get a number out of them. What's their budget? And you're going to get everything from the person who says 50 a month, 100 a month, 200 a month, to people who say I can put in 5,000 a month. I just had a case the other day that the person's like, I would like to put in 100,000 up front and 5,000 a month. That's 180,000 in their first year, or 160,000 in their first year. So figuring out what their number is going to help you determine how you're going to run the illustration, and if you even need to run an illustration. So if somebody is 50 or $100 a month, the general rule of thumb is 10 times your age is the minimum that you should do to max fund a policy. So if you're 35, you should be putting in at least 350. If you're 50, at least 500. Anything that's under that amount, you can pretty much get away with a simplified issue carrier like Mutual of Omaha or Americo or Ethos. So that should be your rule of thumb. If it's less than 10 times their age, their budget, just say, hey, we're going to get you set up on one of those starter policies. We'll get you set up here, do an easy solve, make it really simple, simplify their life, and say, hey, there's enough room in this policy that you could always add more later. These policies are structured where we're buying more insurance up front so that you have the ability to add more later. So an easy example was I had a lady who she wanted to put more money in later. All she had was $50 a month. I can't remember her age, but it was like $55,000 in coverage for a Mutual of Omaha IULE. And when we looked at the policy, at $600 a year, she had the ability to put in up to $1,800 a year. Okay, so she had the ability to put in an extra $100 a month at some point in the future if she wanted to, but we set it up at $50 a month to start. But then you get into some of these bigger ones, the $500, $1,000, $5,000 a month. This is where you really want to go do your homework. This is where you want to say, hey, we're going to go and create a spreadsheet for you. We're going to go run an illustration, and we're going to find out something that makes a lot of sense for you. And we're going to come and, back on here, and we're going to run through it together, and we'll do a quick screen share. A lot of us are using that software called Crankwheel. If you have Google Chrome, it is a extension that you can put into your browser. And I think like the first 15 shares are free, and then it's $29 a month. But you have the ability to just text them a link. Hey, Bob, I'm just going to send you a quick link. It's coming from this phone number. Click on it, and then they can view your screen without you having to jump on Zoom, which makes it really easy to run through an illustration. So our goal here is to find out their number so you can go do some homework. And if you don't know what to do, you can ask a specialist, which is inside of your FFL back office. That's one option. Or you can ask someone on the team. You can say, hey, can you help me run this appointment? Hey, because there's like so many different options. It's like, hey, I think I can run the appointment. I just need some help creating the illustration. Or, hey, can you do the whole thing with me so that I have the ability to know what to say when I get here. This client seems really interested. Can you run this appointment with me? Clear your manager's schedule or clear someone on the team's schedule. It doesn't really matter if they're on your team. And then ask them to split it with you. Say, hey, I want to learn. I'd love to hear everything that you say. Can I split this with you and get you on my appointment at 4 o'clock on Wednesday? And then I'll let you take it over and you pitch the illustration and close it down. And, if it gets approved, we'll split it. That is a great way to learn. That's what I would highly recommend. Do that a half a dozen times and you won't need to split it anymore. Do that a half a dozen times and you can start splitting it with people on your team. So it's really simple. Just get on the phone, who you are, why you're calling, confirm the info, confirm what they're looking for, see if they've done any research, go through the 5 basic points of an IUL, the 3 most common setups, get some basic info on their health, how much money they make, and get their number. Figure out what their monthly budget is. If it is less than 10 times their age, you can kind of treat it like a one-call close. It won't always work that way, but if it's anything less than 10 times their age, I'm typically getting on right there, quoting them with the Marico Mutual of Omaha ethos and trying to get that policy in place right there. If it's anything above 10 times their age, that's when I'm typically rescheduling an appointment to go over the illustration or build the illustration with them while I'm on the phone. So hopefully that all makes sense for you guys. There are a lot of different resources out there for you. For IULs, the IUL Bootcamp is probably the best place for you to start. So I hope that this all makes sense. We're going to continue to pour more and more resources into everybody learning the IUL side of the business, and we will continue to grow from there. Lead Champ Pro has become a game changer for the IUL business and all the think about it stuff. So I highly recommend taking a look at that. Hope everyone has an amazing night, and we will let everyone get back to dialing. See you guys.